Jasmine Crockett's fiery insult to Byron Donalds on live TV ignites a tense Fox News debate, exposing raw divides on race and history. Sparks fly as their clash escalates, gripping viewers with unfiltered drama. The bright lights of the Fox News set glared down on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett as she leaned forward in her chair, her eyes locked on Congressman Byron Donalds. The air buzzed with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle. The debate was supposed to be about race and responsibility in America, but it was clear from the jump this wasn't going to be a polite exchange of ideas. The moderator, a seasoned anchor with a knack for stirring the pot, had just asked Donalds about his recent comments on the Jim Crow era, where he'd suggested there was a kind of stability for black families back then. The audience, both in the studio and at home, was already on edge, waiting for someone to light the fuse. Donalds, cool and composed in his tailored suit, leaned back slightly, his voice steady. "Look, my point was about family structure. During Jim Crow, black families were intact, despite the oppression. We can't ignore that data. It's not about romanticizing anything, it's about understanding what held communities together." Crockett's face tightened, her lips pursing as she gripped the edge of the table. She wasn't having it. "Byron, let's be real," she said, her voice sharp but controlled, slicing through the room. "You're out here talking about intact families, like Jim Crow was some golden age for black folks. You know better. That era was a nightmare. Segregation, lynchings, systemic violence. And you of all people should know the weight of those words." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. Donalds didn't flinch, but his eyes narrowed. "Jasmine, I'm not denying the horrors. I'm saying we can learn from resilience. Black communities built strength under pressure. That's a fact, not a fantasy." Crockett's laugh was short and biting like a jab. "Resilience? Byron, you're sitting there acting like you're the spokesperson for black struggle. But let's talk about connection. Your interracial marriage, your life choices. How deep is your tie to the community you claim to represent?" The words landed like a grenade, and the studio went dead silent for a split second. The moderator's eyebrows shot up, but she didn't interrupt. This was TV gold. Donald's jaw clenched, his calm facade cracking just enough for the cameras to catch it. "That's low, Jasmine," he said, his voice low but firm. "My personal life has nothing to do with my commitment to black Americans. You want to talk policy? Let's talk. But don't come for my family." The audience gasped, and social media was already lighting up. Twitter was a war zone, some users cheering Crockett's boldness, others slamming her for crossing a line. The hashtag Crockett vs. Donalds was trending within minutes. Crockett didn't back down, her eyes blazing. "I'm not coming for your family, Byron. I'm questioning your perspective. When you talk about Jim Crow like it had some silver lining, it sounds like you're out of touch with the pain that still lingers in our communities." The moderator finally jumped in, trying to steer things back to policy, but the damage was done. The debate had turned personal, and the energy in the room was electric. Donalds leaned forward now, his voice rising just enough to show he wasn't rattled. "Jasmine, you're twisting my words to score points. I'm about solutions, school choice, economic opportunity. What are you offering besides attacks?" Crockett smirked, unfazed. "Solutions? Your solutions sound like talking points from folks who don't live our reality. You want to talk opportunity? Start by acknowledging the scars of history, not polishing them up for your narrative." The back and forth was relentless, each jab sharper than the last. The studio audience was eating it up, but you could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a debate. It was a clash of worldviews, of lived experiences. Crockett, a proud Texan with deep roots in black activism, was channeling generations of struggle. Donalds, a Floridian with a conservative streak, was pushing a vision of progress that didn't sit right with her, or with many watching. As the segment neared its close, the moderator tried to wrap things up, but Crockett wasn't done. "Byron, you can't rewrite history to make it comfortable," she said, her voice steady but fierce. "And you can't dodge the truth by hiding behind data. The black community deserves better than that." Donalds opened his mouth to respond, but the moderator cut to commercial, leaving the tension hanging like smoke in the air. The internet was already exploding, and the real fallout was just beginning. Back from commercial, the Fox News cameras zoomed in on Congressman Byron Donalds, his expression a mix of resolve and barely concealed irritation. The studio lights seemed harsher now, amplifying the sweat beading on his forehead. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat across from him, her posture rigid, her gaze unrelenting. The moderator, sensing the audience's hunger for more, dove right back in. "Congressman Donalds, you were about to respond to Congresswoman Crockett's charge that you're rewriting history. Go ahead." Donalds cleared his throat, his voice measured but laced with an edge. "Jasmine, you're trying to paint me as some kind of apologist for Jim Crow, and that's dishonest. I never said it was a good time. I said black families showed strength despite the odds. You can't erase that to fit your narrative. And frankly, questioning my connection to the black community because of who I married? That's not just personal, it's divisive." The audience stirred, a mix of murmurs and sharp inhales. Crockett's eyes flashed, and she leaned forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "Byron, don't play the victim here. I'm not attacking your marriage. I'm calling out the disconnect. You're out here framing Jim Crow like it had some upside, and that's not just tone deaf. It's dangerous. People are listening, and they're hearing you gloss over a history that still hurts." Donald shook his head, his frustration bubbling up. "You're misrepresenting me, Jasmine. I'm talking about resilience, not romance. Black folks built churches, businesses, communities under oppression. That's not glorifying the era. That's honoring our ancestors. Why can't you engage with the actual point?" Crockett's laugh was quick, almost a scoff. "Honor? Byron, you don't honor ancestors by cherry-picking history to make a conservative talking point. You're selling a version of the past that ignores the blood and tears. And when I call it out, you dodge by saying I'm divisive? Nah, I'm just real." The moderator tried to interject, but the crowd's energy was too raw, their reactions fueling the fire. Twitter was a battlefield now, with Crockett vs. Donalds trending worldwide. Clips of Crockett's real line were already racking up millions of views, while Donald's supporters fired back, accusing her of race baiting. The studio felt like a pressure cooker, every word adding to the heat. Donalds leaned in, his voice rising. "Jasmine, you're not the gatekeeper of blackness. You don't get to decide who's real enough. I'm out here fighting for policies, school choice, job creation, that lift our people up. What are you doing besides throwing insults on TV?" That hit a nerve. Crockett's face hardened, and she pointed a finger, her voice steady but fierce. "Don't come for my work, Byron. I'm in the trenches, fighting for voting rights, for justice reform, for communities you claim to speak for. You're pushing policies that sound good on paper but leave too many behind. And you still haven't owned up to romanticizing a time when black folks couldn't even vote without risking their lives." The audience erupted, some cheering, others booing. The moderator raised her voice to regain control. "Let's keep this civil, please. Congresswoman, can you clarify what you mean by romanticizing?" Crockett didn't miss a beat. "It's simple. When you talk about intact families under Jim Crow without centering the violence, the segregation, the fear, you're softening the truth. You're making it palatable for folks who don't want to face the full weight of that history. That's not leadership. That's avoidance." Donald's eyes narrowed, his voice low but intense. "Jasmine, I've never avoided the truth. I've spoken about the horrors of that era. Lynchings, redlining, all of it. But I won't let you erase the strength of our people to score political points. We can talk about the pain and the progress without tearing each other down." The room felt electric, every word a spark. Crockett smirked, undeterred. "Strength? Byron, strength isn't a soundbite. It's not a talking point to dodge accountability. If you want to talk progress, start by owning the harm in your words. Because right now, you're not building bridges. You're burning them." The moderator jumped in, trying to pivot to policy, but the clash was too raw, too personal. The audience was glued to their seats, and social media was a frenzy of memes, hot takes, and viral clips. As the segment wound down, Donalds leaned back, his face a mask of determination. "Jasmine, I'm not here to burn anything. I'm here to build. But if you want to fight, I'm not backing down." Crockett's eyes locked on his, her voice low and unyielding. "Byron, I don't want to fight. I want the truth. And I'm not stopping until it's out there." The cameras lingered on their stare-down, the tension thick enough to choke on, as the moderator's voice faded into the background, setting the stage for an even bigger storm. The Fox News studio was a cauldron of raw energy. The cameras still fixed on the searing stare-down between Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Congressman Byron Donalds. Crockett's words, "I want the truth," hung in the air like a challenge, her voice echoing in the minds of millions watching live. Donalds's jaw tightened, his eyes unyielding, as the moderator scrambled to regain control. "All right, let's pivot to solutions," she said, her tone almost pleading. "How do we address racial disparities today?" But the question felt like a flimsy tether against the storm brewing between the two. Crockett broke the silence first, her voice calm but laced with steel. "Solutions start with honesty, Byron. You can't fix what you won't face. You talk about progress, but your version of history skips the parts that still keep us chained. Voter suppression, economic gaps, police violence. That's the truth. I'm talking about." Donalds leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly, his voice steady but sharp. "Jasmine, I face those issues every day. I've fought for criminal justice reform, for opportunity zones. But you're so busy pointing fingers you're not hearing me. We don't fix disparities by dwelling on pain. We do it by empowering people with real tools, not just rhetoric." The audience buzzed, some clapping, others whispering. Twitter was a wildfire, with Crockett vs. Donalds clips racking up retweets by the second. Crockett's supporters hailed her as a truth-teller. Donalds fans called her a grandstander. The divide was stark, and the studio felt like ground zero. Crockett's eyes narrowed, her voice rising with conviction. "Empowering people? Byron, you're pushing policies that sound empowering but don't deliver. Opportunity zones? They're a tax break for the wealthy, not a lifeline for black communities. You're selling dreams while folks are still waking up to nightmares." Donalds's face flashed with anger, his voice cutting through the noise. "That's unfair, Jasmine, and you know it. Those zones have brought billions to underserved areas. You're dismissing real progress because it doesn't fit your story. I'm not here for dreams, I'm here for results." "What results are you delivering with all this outrage?" The crowd roared, split down the middle. The moderator raised a hand, but Crockett was already firing back. "Results? Byron, my results are in the streets, in the laws I'm fighting for, in the communities I'm lifting up. You're out here talking billions, but where's the change for the single mom working 2 jobs? For the kid in a failing school? Your results don't reach them." Donald shook his head, his voice low but intense. "Jasmine, you're acting like you're the only one who cares. I grew up in Brooklyn, raised by a single mom. I know struggle, but I also know you don't fix it by tearing down people trying to build. You're not offering solutions, you're just loud." That stung. Crockett's face tightened, and she leaned in, her voice dripping with defiance. "Loud? Byron, I'm loud because silence hasn't worked. I'm loud because people Like you get on TV and make it sound like we're past the fight when we're not. You want quiet? That's not progress. That's surrender. The studio erupted, cheers and boos colliding. The moderator's voice was drowned out as social media exploded with reactions. Memes of Crockett's surrender line went viral, while Donald's supporters flooded timelines with stats on his policies. The clash was no longer just a debate. It was a cultural flashpoint, exposing fault lines that ran deep. The moderator, desperate to steer the ship, asked, "Congressman, how do you respond to the charge that your approach ignores ongoing systemic issues?" Donalds didn't hesitate. "Jasmine's wrong. I don't ignore anything. I'm saying we tackle systemic issues with action. Better schools, more jobs, stronger families. But we don't get there by relitigating the past or questioning each other's loyalty. That's a distraction, and it's beneath us." Crockett's laugh was sharp, almost a blade. "Beneath us? Byron, what's beneath us is pretending the past doesn't shape the present. You want to talk schools? Let's talk how they're still segregated by zip code. Jobs? Let's talk wage gaps. You're acting like we're one policy away from equality. And that's a fantasy." The tension was suffocating, every word a new wound. The audience was on edge, hanging on each retort. Donalds leaned back, his voice steady but fierce. "Jasmine, I'm not living in a fantasy. I'm living in reality, where people need help now, not more lectures about scars. You want to keep fighting yesterday's battles? Go ahead. I'm focused on tomorrow." Crockett's eyes blazed, her voice unwavering. "Tomorrow? Byron, tomorrow doesn't come if we don't face today. And today, your words are letting too many people off the hook." The cameras caught every second, the weight of her words, sinking in as the moderator struggled to keep up, knowing the real battle was just heating up. The Fox News set pulsed with tension, the weight of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's words, letting too many people off the hook, still reverberating. Congressman Byron Donalds sat rigid, his eyes locked on her, a storm brewing behind his calm exterior. The audience was a live wire, their reactions a mix of gasps and hushed whispers as the cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion. The moderator, her voice strained, tried to pivot. "Let's talk specifics. Congressman Donalds, how do you address Congresswoman Crockett's claim that your rhetoric sidesteps accountability?" Donalds exhaled sharply, his voice taut but controlled. "Jasmine, you're wrong. I'm not letting anyone off the hook. I'm holding everyone accountable. Government, communities, individuals, to build a better future. You keep dragging us back to pain. But I'm about progress. My policies, my record show I'm fighting for Black families, not ignoring them." Crockett's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting like glass. "Progress? Byron, your progress is a mirage. You talk accountability, but when you downplay Jim Crow's scars, you're giving a pass to the system still profiting off our pain. You can't cherry-pick history and call it leadership. That's cowardice." The audience erupted, cheers clashing with boos. Twitter was a frenzy. Crockett vs. Donalds trending higher than ever, with viral clips of Crockett's cowardice, jabs spreading like wildfire. Donalds's supporters fired back, calling her divisive, while Crockett's base hailed her as fearless. The studio was a pressure cooker, and the moderator's attempts to steer the debate felt futile. Donalds leaned forward, his voice rising, each word deliberate. "Cowardice? Jasmine, that's rich. I've faced every challenge head-on, poverty, doubters, this stage. I'm not running from history. I'm learning from it. You're the one stuck, weaponizing pain to shut down debate." Crockett's laugh was sharp, her posture unyielding. "Shut down debate? Byron, I'm starting it. You're the one dodging, wrapping your nostalgia in buzzwords like resilience. Black folks don't need your history lesson. They need you to stop sanitizing the past and start fighting for the present." The crowd roared, the divide palpable. The moderator raised her voice. Congresswoman, can you specify what policies you'd prioritize to address these issues? But Crockett was locked in, her focus on Donald's. Policies? Let's talk voting rights, Byron. You're silent when states gut them. Let's talk wealth gaps. Your tax cuts don't close them. You want specifics? I'm fighting for reparative justice, for education equity. What's your plan? Besides talking about intact families like it's 1950, Donald's face tightened, his voice low but fierce. Jasmine, I've backed voting reforms that ensure access without fraud. I've pushed tax cuts that help small businesses in our communities. You're throwing out reparative justice like it's a fix-all. But where's the funding? The votes? You're preaching, not governing. The jab landed, and the audience buzzed. Crockett's eyes flashed, but she didn't flinch. Preaching? Byron, I'm speaking for people you're leaving behind. You're out here playing respectability politics, acting like if we just work harder, the system will fix itself. That's not governing. That's performing for the wrong crowd. The studio felt like it might combust, every word fueling the fire. Social media was a war zone, with memes and hot takes flying. The moderator, visibly frazzled, tried again. Congressman, how do you respond to the charge of performing? Donald's didn't hesitate, his voice steady but intense. Jasmine, I'm not performing for anyone. I'm delivering jobs, schools, safety. You're the one turning this into a spectacle, questioning my life, my loyalty. You want to talk systems? Let's talk how your approach keeps us divided, not united. Crockett leaned in, her voice unwavering. Divided? Byron, the division started when folks like you started rewriting history to make it comfortable. I'm not here to unite with half-truths. I'm here to call them out, and you're not ready for that mirror. The audience was on edge, hanging on every syllable. The moderator's voice cracked as she tried to pivot. Let's discuss unity. How do we bridge this gap? But the question felt hollow against the raw confrontation unfolding. Donald shook his head, his voice sharp. Jasmine, I'm ready for any mirror. I'm just not here for your distortion. You want truth? Start with the data. My policies are working. Yours are just noise. Crockett's smirk was defiant, her voice low and piercing. Noise? Byron? My noise is the sound of people demanding better. And you're not ready to hear it. The cameras lingered on their locked gazes, the tension a living thing, as the segment teetered on the edge of chaos, with no end in sight. The Fox News studio was a crucible, the air thick with the aftershocks of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's defiant words. My noise is the sound of people demanding better. Congressman Byron Donald stared back, his eyes burning with resolve, the weight of their clash palpable. The audience was silent, breathless, as the cameras held tight on their locked gazes. The moderator, her voice frayed, tried to reclaim the reins. Let's wrap this up. How do we move forward from here? But the question felt like a whisper against the roar of their confrontation. Donald spoke first, his voice steady but charged. Jasmine, you call it noise, but I call it division. I'm fighting for a future where every black family has a shot. Jobs, schools, safety. You're stuck shouting about the past, and it's not moving the needle. We need unity, not more blame. Crockett's eyes flashed, her voice sharp and unyielding. Unity? Byron, unity doesn't come from ignoring the truth. You're out here acting like we can just skip over the wounds and hold hands. My shouting is for the people who don't have your platform, who need someone to fight for them. You're not uniting, you're pacifying. The crowd erupted, cheers and boos colliding. Twitter was a maelstrom. Crockett vs. Donald's breaking. Records as clips of their exchange went viral. The moderator's pleas for calm were drowned out. The studio a battleground of ideals. Crockett leaned forward, her voice rising. Byron, you talk about moving the needle, but your needle's stuck. You're pushing policies that look good on paper but don't reach the ground. Communities crumbling, kids trapped in failing systems. I'm fighting for real change, not your polished version of it. Donald's face hardened, his voice cutting through the noise. Jasmine, you're wrong. My policies are reaching the ground. Look at the data. Opportunity zones, school choice, they're creating paths. You're dismissing that because it doesn't fit your script. You want change? Stop tearing down those who are building it. The audience was electric, every word a spark. Crockett's laugh was quick, defiant. Building? Byron, you're building castles in the air. Your paths don't lead where people need to go. I'm in the streets, hearing the real stories. Moms who can't pay rent, families scared of the next traffic stop. That's the truth you're not facing. The moderator, desperate, jumped in. Let's close with a call to action. What's your message to America? Donald's went first, his voice firm. My message is simple. We rise together. Focus on what works. Education, opportunity, accountability. Stop letting the past divide us. I'm committed to that, no matter what's thrown at me. Crockett's eyes never left him, her voice steady but fierce. My message? Face the truth, America. We can't heal what we won't acknowledge. Fight for justice, for equity, for the people who've been left behind. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you think. The studio was silent for a heartbeat, then exploded with applause, split down the middle. The cameras panned across the divided crowd as the moderator rushed to end the segment. That's all for tonight. Thank you both. But the real impact was already rippling outward. Social media was a war zone, with millions dissecting every word, every glance. The hashtag #Crockett vs. Donalds trended for days, sparking debates in homes, workplaces, and town halls. In the aftermath, both faced intense scrutiny. Donalds doubled down in interviews, defending his vision of progress, but constituents demanded he address Crockett's charges head-on. Crockett, meanwhile, became a lightning rod, celebrated by some as a truth-teller, criticized by others for her sharp tone. Both returned to their districts, meeting with voters, hearing raw stories that forced them to reflect. Donalds sat with community leaders, grappling with how his words landed. Crockett listened to elders, their pain reinforcing her resolve. The clash didn't resolve their differences, but it ignited a broader conversation. Town halls sprang up, op-eds flooded newspapers, and young activists took to the streets, inspired by the raw honesty of the debate. Crockett and Donalds, though, still at odds, found their words quoted in classrooms, in churches, in barbershops. Their confrontation, painful and messy, became a catalyst, pushing America to wrestle with its past and its future. As the dust settled, both stood taller, their voices sharper, their missions clearer. They didn't agree, but they'd sparked something bigger, a demand for dialogue, for truth, for change. And in that, despite the fire, there was triumph.